Hello, today we are going to look at the descriptive kind of questions that we are going to face in HPSC Assistant Professor exam that is to be conducted after screening test. So what kind of questions you may encounter and how would you frame answers related to that. So we'll be looking at that. So let's look at one uh, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and what kind of questions you may encounter and how do you answer that. So first question is, analyze the character of Elizabeth Bennet as a representative of the new woman in Austen era. So I have provided a model answer for that, which you can see. Elizabeth Bennet represents a departure from the conventional 18th century feminine ideal, embodying characteristics of what would later be termed as the new woman. Her independence of thought is evident in her rejection of Mr. Collins' proposal despite social pressure, and her initial refusal of Darcy's proposal based on personal conviction rather than material advantage. So you provided a very strong argument as an introduction, and you set the tone. Why would she be called as the new woman? So we saw that she was a kind of a departure from the normal conventions and the way feminine traits were visible at that time, and therefore she was termed as new woman. She had independence of thought, and which could be visible in her rejection of Mr. Collins' proposal, although there was so much of social pressures on her to accept that proposal, but she rejected it. And she also refused Darcy's proposal, and she didn't do it just because of someone's others considerations, but rather on personal conviction. So that was the matter. So now move on. Elizabeth's intellectual curiosity sets her apart from her contemporaries. She enjoys reading, engages in witty conversation, and forms independent judgment about people and situation. Unlike her sister Lydia, who is governed by impulse, or Jane, who is excessively compliant, Elizabeth demonstrates a balanced approach to life that combines emotion with reason. So when you form another paragraph, in that paragraph you need to have a point. Don't try to intermingle so many points. Have one point and try to link it. So Elizabeth's intellectual curiosity was something that sets her apart from other contemporaries. She was kind of intellectual, she was interested in reading, and her conversation was witty as well, and she can form very independent judgments about people and situations. But if you look at her sister Lydia, she was being governed by impulse. Or even Jane, she was kind of compliant, you may say. So Elizabeth demonstrates a balanced approach to life that combines emotion with reason. This is in perfect harmony. So the harmony of being reasonable as well as not letting out that emotions is very important. Her walking through muddy fields to nether fields to tend to Jane despite social approval illustrates her disregard for artificial social convention when they conflict with genuine affection and duty. This action symbolizes her rejection of the constraints placed on women's mobility and agency. So you can see there was some sorts of social disapproval, but even then she went to the fields, to nether fields, and this illustrates that she was disregarding the artificial social conventions which were being created, and if it contradicts with the genuine affection and duty, she was supposed to supposed to carry out her own affection and duty. And this action symbolizes her rejection of the constraints placed on women's mobility and agency. Most significantly, Elizabeth's evolution throughout the novel demonstrates her capacity for self-reflection and growth, her ability to acknowledge her prejudices against Darcy and modify her opinion based on new evidence show intellectual maturity that Austen presents as admirable and necessary for true partnership in marriage. So you saw how conclusive it becomes and how you can describe or make characterizations of the themes or any persons that is given to you. Now let us look at question number 2. Examine Mr. Darcy's character transformation throughout the novel. So how did Darcy, from being a flamboyant boy and a very arrogant one, to someone of considerate nature in later period of that work, is showing the transformations. So let us look at the model answer for that. Darcy's character arc represents one of the literature's most compelling studies in personal growth and social awareness. Initially presented as the embodiment of aristocratic pride, Darcy undergoes a profound transformation that mirrors the novel's themes of social reform and personal development. So this is just an introduction whereby we are just repeating the questions line in a very grand manner. In a compelling way we are writing that essay. So his early pride manifests in his dismissive attitudes toward the Bennet family social status and his interference in Jane's and Bingley's relationship. The infamous comment about Elizabeth being tolerable reveals his class consciousness prejudices and social arrogance. His first proposal to Elizabeth, the sincere feeling, is marred by his condescending tone and expectation of grateful expectance. So he was somewhat kind of a prideful man, and he was just believing that whatever he wishes that could be achieved, but he finds some sorts of rejection. So Elizabeth's rejection serves as a catalyst for Darcy's self-examination. Her accusations force him to confront his behavior toward Wickham and his treatments of others. His subsequent letters mark the beginning of his transformation, as he provides factual explanation while beginning to acknowledge his faults. So you saw that Darcy was transformed because of Elizabeth's rejections. When she accused him, she somewhat had that introvert feeling, and that led to his transformation. The transformations become evident in his actions rather than words. His intervention in Lydia's elopement with Wickham demonstrates his growing understanding of genuine nobility as service rather than status. His humble approach to Elizabeth at Pemberley and his courtesy to her previously scorned relatives, so he evolved character. Ultimately, Darcy's transformation represents Austen's vision of the ideal gentleman, one who combines natural advantage of birth and fortune with moral integrity, humility, and social responsibility. So you saw character-based questions. Now we shall move to some thematic analysis type of questions. Let's look at that. The question is, discuss the theme of marriage in Pride and Prejudice, examining different types of marriages presented in the novel. So Austen presents marriage as complex institution, influenced by various motivations, using multiple couples to explore different approaches to matrimony and their consequences. Charlotte Lucas and Mr. Collins represent marriage as socio-economic necessity. Charlotte's pragmatic acceptance of Collins' proposal illustrates the limited options available to women without fortune. Their union, while providing security, lacks emotional fulfillment, representing Austen's critique of purely mercenary marriages. So these marriages represent that the women who do not have fortune, there are very limited options to get married, and although the union or the marriage, while it provides the security, it somewhere down the line lacks emotional fulfillment. Next type of marriage you can see in Lydia, Bennet, and Wickham, and this marriage embody marriage based on passion and impulse without consideration of compatibility or character. Their hasty elopement, motivated by lust rather than love, results in an unstable union that requires external intervention to legitimate. This marriage serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unregulated emotion. So you saw Wickham was a very weird kind of man. He demanded money to get to keep Lydia near him, and later on we saw that even there were external pressure or external interference in their marriage. Nonetheless, they got married. And Mr. and Miss Bennet type of marriage illustrates the consequence of marriage based on superficial attraction. Mr. Bennet's initial infatuation with his wife's youth and beauty has evolved into contempt, while Mr. Bennet's lack of intellectual depth has created a dysfunctional household. Their marriage demonstrates how initial attraction without deeper compatibility leads to mutual dissatisfaction. So, just because of some beauty and youthfulness, they got married, but there's another kind of marriage that may turn out to be successful. So, just infatuation-based marriage is something is being delineated here. Next kind of marriage you see Jane Bennet and Bingley. And this marriage represents marriage based on genuine affection, compatible temperaments. The relations, though somewhat idealized, shows the possibilities of happiness when both partners share similar values and dispositions. So here, the marriage of Bingley and Jane was kind of a love marriage, and they both were sharing similar concerns, and they were interested in each other. So that marriage somehow may work out. Elizabeth and Darcy achieves Austen's ideal, a marriage combining love, respect, intellectual compatibility, and social advantage. The union transcends class boundaries while maintaining economic stability, representing the novel's vision of marriage, both personal fulfillment and social institution. So Elizabeth and Darcy's marriage while at first Darcy was a weird kind of man, but later on he got transformed. So this is something worth remarking. Next questions we shall be looking at: analyze the role of social class and its impact on relationships in the novel. So social class function as both a structuring principle and a source of conflict throughout Pride and Prejudice, influencing every relationship, highlighting tensions between inherited status and personal worth. The rigid class hierarchy of Regency England creates barrier between character despite their personal inclinations. Darcy's initial pride stems from his position as a landed gentleman, leading him to dismiss Bennet's family's claim gentility. Lady Catherine's opposition to Elizabeth exemplifies aristocratic resistance to social mobility through marriage. So you saw that how Lady Catherine was opposing to Elizabeth, and this is how aristocratic people who had inherited wealth from their forefathers, they are not willing to get married to people from lower class or from people who are having not so much of money or wealth. So this kind of class division was being seen there. However, Austen presents a more nuanced view of class through the concept of true gentility. Character like Wickham possesses the external markers of gentle status but lack moral substance, while Elizabeth, despite her lowered social position, demonstrates genuine refinement through her intelligence, integrity, and principled behavior. So we saw Wickham, though he was of aristocratic nature, he didn't have that moral substance near him. He was still hankering after money despite being a rich man, whereas Elizabeth, she was coming from a low social position, but she had a finer sensibility. She was full of intelligence, integrity, and her behavior is principled one. The novel suggests that social class, while influential, should not be the sole determinant of human worth or relationship viability. Darcy's transformation involved learning to value personal merit over social position, while Elizabeth must overcome her own class-based prejudices against wealthy. So Elizabeth had certain prejudices, whereas we saw how this got transformed. So Pemberley represents Austen's visions of responsible privilege, where social advantage are paired with moral obligations. Darcy's estate is well managed, his servants are content, his influence is used beneficially, suggesting that the class privilege can be justified when accompanied by social responsibility. The novel ultimately advocates for a more flexible social system where mobility is possible based on merit, while maintaining stability through responsible stewardship of inherited advantages. We shall look at the next type of question, that is literary technique questions. And question is, examines Jane Austen's use of irony in Pride and Prejudice. Austen's masterful use of irony operates on multiple levels throughout Pride and Prejudice, serving both as a narrative technique and a tool for social commentary. You have seen irony. What is irony? Irony is when the intended meaning contrasts with the expressed meaning. So there are multiple types of irony: verbal irony, dramatic irony, situational irony. Here we'll be looking at the dramatic irony, and this dramatic irony is evident in the gap between character understanding and reader knowledge. Elizabeth's initial confidence in her judgment of Darcy and Wickham creates dramatic tensions. So, character understanding and reader knowledge is contrasted here. Elizabeth's initial confidence in her judgment of Darcy and Wickham creates dramatic tension as reader gradually perceives the truth before she does. Similarly, readers understand Mr. Collins' absurdity while he remains oblivious to his own pomposity. And verbal irony you may find permeates the narrator's voice, particularly in character descriptions. The famous opening line about wealthy single man being in want of a wife ironically reverses the reality of women's economic dependence on marriage. Miss Bennet's description as a woman of mean understanding employs understated irony to highlight her intellectual limitation. And situational irony is also present. Situational irony derives major plot developments. Elizabeth's prejudice against Darcy's pride ironically reveals her own prejudicial nature, while Darcy's pride marks his genuine humility. The revelation of Wickham's true character creates situational irony, as the seemingly charming soldier proves duplicitous, while the apparently arrogant gentleman demonstrates true nobility. So this is situational irony. We are thinking something else and something else comes out. Similarly, social irony is also present, and it critiques social conventions through character interactions. Mr. Collins' servile relationship with Lady Catherine satirizes the absurdity of social hierarchy, while the contrast between Darcy's and Wickham's true characters ironically inverts social expectations about birth and breeding. So Austen's ironic technique serves to engage readers actively in the text while providing subtle commentary on social conventions, individual behavior, and the complexity of human nature. Now move on to next questions. Question number 6. Discuss the significance of letters in Pride and Prejudice. Letters function as crucial narrative devices in Pride and Prejudice, serving multiple purposes including plot advancements, character development, and thematic reinforcement. Darcy's letter to Elizabeth represents novel's pivotal moment, providing the catalyst for Elizabeth's self-examination and the story's central transformation. The letter's formal and explanatory tone contrasts with emotional intensity of his rejected proposal, demonstrating his attempt at rational communications. With this letter, Austen explores themes of truth, perception, and the difficulty of accurate judgment. So you can see how letters had contributed to plot advancement and these character developments and even thematic reinforcement. Jane's letter to Elizabeth provides plot information while revealing character differences. Jane's restrained description of her feelings for Bingley's contrast with Elizabeth's more expressive nature, highlighting their different temperaments and approaches to emotional expression. So when Jane wrote letters to Elizabeth, you can see how the character's difference is being revealed here. So she describes in a very restricted way about Bingley, and this apparently contrasts with the Elizabeth's most expressive nature. So this highlights different temperaments and leads to characterizations of different characters. Mr. Collins' letter serves as vehicle for comedy while advancing plot. His formal, pompous style satirizes clerical pretension and social climbing. His letter announcing engagement to Charlotte Lucas provides crucial for plot development while maintaining his comic function. Lydia's brief note about her elopement demonstrates her frivolous nature and lack of consideration for family consequences. The letter's casual tone regarding such a serious matter emphasizes her immaturity and the gravity of her actions. So, when she eloped, she wrote a very casual kind of letter. And if you look at letters, Mr. Gardner's letters, it provides necessary plot information about Darcy's role in resolving Wickham's crisis, allowing Austen to maintain narrative focus on Elizabeth while revealing crucial information about Darcy's character development. So, in this way, letters in the novel serve as more than simple communication devices. They represent different modes of expressions, reveal character traits, and provide Austen with a realistic method of conveying information and advancing a complex plot structure. Now we shall move on to social and historical context questions. Analyze the position of women in Regency society as reflected in Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice provides a detailed examination of women's constant position in Regency society, highlighting both limitations and possibilities for female agencies within restricted social structures. Economic dependence defines women's fundamental vulnerability. The entailment of Bennet's estate to Mr. Collins illustrates how legal structures disadvantage women, leaving them dependent on male relatives for economic security. Charlotte Lucas' pragmatic marriage. So economic dependence is somewhere depicting about that fundamental vulnerability. And we saw Charlotte Lucas' pragmatic marriage to Collins demonstrates how economic necessity could override personal preference, while Elizabeth's ability to reject advantageous proposal reflects the privilege of having some family support. Similarly, another theme you may see, limited education and accomplishments. This restricts women's intellectual development. The emphasis on accomplishments like music, drawing, languages serves ornament rather than practical purposes, preparing women for drawing room entertainment rather than independent thought. Elizabeth's love of reading and walking represents subtle rebellion against these constraints. Marriage as career. Marriage as career become women's primary option for social and economic advancement. The novel presents various approaches to this reality, from Miss Bennet's desperate husband hunting for her daughters to Elizabeth's insistence on emotional compatibility and respect. Next theme is social mobility. Through marriages, social mobilities are offered, although it provides limited opportunity for advancements as demonstrated by Elizabeth's elevations through her union with Darcy. However, such mobility requires exceptional circumstances and personal qualities that transcend class boundaries. Domestic spheres defines women's proper domain. Yet Austen shows how intelligent women like Elizabeth can exercise influence and maintain dignity within these constraints. Elizabeth's management of her relationship with Darcy demonstrates how women could negotiate power within seemingly subordinate positions. The novel both critiques and works within these limitations, suggesting possibilities for female agency while acknowledging structural constraints. Next theme is about examining the concept of accomplishment in the novel and its social significance. The concept of accomplishments in Pride and Prejudice reflects Regency society's expectations for gentlewomen while serving as a vehicle for Austen's social commentary on women education and social value. Traditional accomplishments include musical performance, drawing, speaking, modern languages, and dancing. These skills serve ornamental purposes designed to make women attractive in the marriage market rather than developing their intellectual capacities. The emphasis on surface accomplishments reflects society's view of women as decorative objects rather than thinking individuals. Caroline Bingley's accomplishments represent the superficial mastery expected of fashionable women. Her piano playing and language skills serves to display her refinement and social status, but lack genuine passion or depth. Her criticism of Elizabeth's lack of accomplishments reveal the competitive nature of female social positioning. Elizabeth's alternative accomplishments include extensive reading, quick wit, independent thinking. Her love of book and intellectual curiosity represents Austen's alternative vision of female development. Her ability to walk through muddy fields to Netherfield prioritizes practical concern over social appearance, challenging conventional expectations. Darcy's expanded definition of accomplishment includes extensive reading, an improvement of the mind suggesting a more substantial approach to female education. His appreciation for Elizabeth's intellectual qualities indicates Austen's preference for mental over merely ornamental accomplishments. Mary Bennet's misapplied learning demonstrates how even serious study can become problematic when pursued for show rather than genuine understanding. Her pedantic displays of knowledge illustrate the difference between true learning and a mere accumulation of facts. The novel advocates for a balance between social graces and intellectual development, suggesting true accomplishment involves both external skill and internal cultivations. Now we shall look at critical analysis questions. Discuss Pride and Prejudice as a novel of manners and its critique of social convention. Pride and Prejudice exemplifies the novel of manners, tradition, while simultaneously critiquing the social convention it depicts, creating a complex examination of Regency society's values and behavior. Manners as social code govern characters' interactions throughout the novel. The elaborate rules of calling, formal introductions, and proper behavior at social gathering create the framework within which relationships develop. Mr. Collins' exaggerated adherence to social forms, particularly his servile relationship with Lady Catherine, satirizes the potential absurdity of rigid social conventions. Class-based behavior patterns reveals how manners serves to maintain social hierarchies. Lady Catherine's imperious demands for deference, Darcy's initial hauteur, and Bennet's family's varying degree of social appropriateness all demonstrates how manners function as makers of social position and breeding. Austen's critique emerges through character contrast and narrative irony. The juxtapositions of Wickham's superficial charm with Darcy's genuine integrity suggests true worth lies beneath social surface. Elizabeth's natural ease compared to Caroline Bingley's affected refinement highlights the difference between authentic and performed gentility. Evolutionary social vision appears in the novel's resolution, where personal merit transcends rigid class boundaries. Elizabeth's acceptance into Darcy's social circle, despite her lower birth, suggests Austen's vision of a more flexible social system based on character rather than mere inheritance. Balance between convention and authenticity characterizes Austen's approach. While critiquing social rigidity, she doesn't advocate for complete social revolution, but rather for a reformation that maintains beneficial aspects of social order while maintaining arbitrary restriction based solely on birth or wealth. I think you enjoyed the entire session. Do comment what kind of or on which topic you want these descriptive questions. Would you like such more content? Thank you. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to the channel Themes and Thesis. Thank you.